Welcome to Innovation Calling,
the podcast where we connect the creators for the next big thing. We're your hosts, Aaron Smith
and Sia Yasotornrat.
Hey, this is Aaron Greger.
And Sia Yasotornrat.
Hey, before we jump into this episode, we have a favor to ask of you. First, thank you. Thank you for always downloading, for always listening. We could never do this podcast without you, but we need one more favor. So if you could go to your favorite podcast directory, wherever you download us, whether it be iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever it is, and please leave us a rating and review. And if you're feeling extra special, make sure you subscribe and share this with your friends. But at least leave us a rating and review. It has to be 5-star only. Just kidding. Be honest. We're cool with it. But we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. So Sia, can you introduce our guests for this particular episode?
Yes, I will be more than happy to, and very humbled with Mr. Nick Mysore. He's an accomplished business leader, Aaron. Huge background in consumer packaged goods and technology. But he's also an entrepreneur. And he's done it all. Talk about someone that has done it, seen it, and made things happen. I enjoyed our time talking to him, and hopefully everyone else will enjoy it as well.
All right, so without further ado, here is our interview with Nick Mysore.
Welcome to the podcast, Nick Mysore.
Thank you.
I just realized I can't say my R's very well, so my apologies. Mysore.
Mm-hmm. You got it.
Thank you very much. Well, so we met very briefly at the Dallas Tech Startup Week and a few weeks ago. And Nick was on a panel, Aaron. And can I just tell you, sometimes panels are exciting and some panels are boring. Nick was not boring.
All right. Hence why you asked him to be on.
And this is why I asked Nick
I would
to
hope
be on
it'd
the board.
be the opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, if we can get started and talk about a little bit about your background, because I think it's so fascinating. I think you have such an illustrious career. Without going too much into it, help me understand how you went from the food retail or food distribution world. I saw you were at TXU, and then now you are you've had another business that you've started, and also you do consulting for venture capitalists, etc.
That's right.
Help me understand how you drew that roundabout, because you went from marketing, and now you're consulting for these major corporations, but advising it under different circumstances.
That's right. So, let's put it this way. God has been kind, so it's been a very interesting career, right? I started off as a management consultant and then went to work for GTE Telecommunications, which became Verizon.
Oh, that's right. Mm.
Okay. So with the same group of guys, I went to the energy business. So I can honestly say I worked in two deregulated businesses, one telecom and the other energy. Okay. When Enron happened, I reinvented myself and went to Conagra Foods.
Which is an interesting jump to go from
correct.
energy to foods, right? I mean, that's a different...
That's right.
Way different.
Way different. Industries are different, but your principles remain the same, right?
Okay.
Your creativity, your strategy, how you think about marketing and branding, those are the key principles that kind of drove my whole career, right? And so from Conagra Foods, I went to work for a company called a packaging company in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then we ended up at Dean Foods.
And let's talk about how much fun you had at Dean Foods.
Dean Foods was a great job. So I was the head of market strategy for Dean Foods, reported to a fantastic guy who was my CMO. And together we actually helped bring 35 different dairies together to launch True Moo, which became a $1 billion brand, right? And the team there that did the work, it was phenomenal because a lot of what we did was we used insights to drive the business.
Can I go, because you made it sound very easy that you're got at it. Any stories that you remember or challenges that you guys really had to overcome? I always love the war wounds that came out of a huge launch like that or $1 billion brand, something even, you're saying it kind of can go across industries. Anything that specifically happened that somebody listening to this could be we could be going through that, or that may happen, or good to know?
So think about it this way. There's a lot of research that goes into it in corporate America. The difference between an entrepreneurial company and a corporate America is we do so much research, we get paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
Okay. While in an entrepreneurial environment, I'm able to launch. And I did that with this juice company, right? But going back to your question, it was very interesting because we were bringing in a lot of political fiefdoms together because there were different dairies, each had their own brand. And to give the team, our team, some due kudos, we brought these different data points together that said if we had a national brand, we would have a tremendous opportunity to get scale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the other thing was it actually saved us a lot of costs because you had the same chocolate milk, right? With less sugar content, but it tasted better. So the R&D team that put it together, I think, did a great job.
And that's what you don't think about. And Erin, her background, her dad runs a dairy farm. Is there's innovation in food that you don't think about in that context? And it's not, heavily manufactured. It was just simply a lot of marketing, quite frankly, right? And in a way, obviously, with the development of making it less sugar, right? Having to require less sugar for it. But the amount of marketing and the story that you had to put and sell the value of this chocolate milk versus any other, True Move versus any other brand. I mean, you guys must have done a heck of a job pulling all that together.
Yeah, we worked with the agency. So remember, innovation is all about cross-functional teamwork, right?
Right.
So there's the R&D team, there's the finance group, and this is what I teach at SMU, how you bring all this together. And you have to bring multiple teams together. You have to bring the sales force together to the table. So in answer to your question, everybody has to align and you have to have a common goal to launch the brand, right? Or you can have a major failure on your hands.
I mean, I could see where that would have failed potentially if it's marketing driven and not maybe with the endorsement of sales to actually execute and sell on it.
That's right. It has to have, so think about it this way. It has to have management support. So you have to have a sponsor who believes in it, who's championing it. And then you have to have a team that kind of works through the mechanics of putting it all together. The labeling, the marketing team did a fantastic job. We as strategy came up with the strategy, right? But then there's so much executional element that needs to happen.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I tell people it's all about bringing that cross-functional thought process to drive innovation and launching new brands. It's a new business you create.
So, I mean, so this Dean Foods is obviously an established organization,
That's right.
Big company, right?
That's right.
Well, if I'm maybe a startup, maybe a less mature startup has similar challenges, but what's the difference do you see between, Dean Foods launching a True Move versus, when at your time at Vinvite, for example?
Yeah, so when you think about the stage gate process, it's a huge process in CPG, right? In consumer packaged goods. But when you think about entrepreneurial companies, I don't have the resources.
Right.
So I'm the R&D, I'm the sales guy,
I'm the marketing
I'm
team.
the marketing team, I'm the finance guy, right? And then I have a private equity group that is sitting with us trying to tell us what to do.
So,
right?
Do you have good communication skills within yourself then?
Yeah.
You almost have to. Right? You have to believe in it, and you have to make a call. And I always tell people, like, part of what you do is there's a judgment that you bring to bear with the market data that you know, right? That together is what makes it very unique. For example, at the juice company, we launched 2 different lines in 6 months.
That's crazy.
Okay, that's crazy, right? And we appealed to different consumer segments. And the whole idea was to look at the need states of the market and then find a little niche, right? And that niche is what you go after.
Interesting.
So, can you give some tips on finding that niche? Because I know that's a very, huge perspective in building a product, selling a product, marketing a product. What are some tips, like from a marketing perspective, of how you discover that niche? Because like you said, so much research. Well, as a startup, as a small business, I may not have the tools or the whatever to find all that research. Anything you can suggest?
I talked to a lot of consumers. One of the things that we did was when we were in the juice business, I took cases of these juices and I went and stood in different markets, right? And I said, okay, here, take this juice. Tell me what would you like to see? Less sugar content, less calories. So you ask the consumers the feedback. And that feedback is what then enables you to say, hey, I'm on the right track. Let me think about it a different way. And let me see if I can make the necessary product changes. I'll give you an example today, right? One of the things that I always tell people is food is medicine. Mm-hmm. Okay? My mom used to give me turmeric all the time. Now turmeric is big.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So you think about the kind of food you eat. It's based on ancient principles. You can actually create innovative food products today using ancient principles that are very natural and organic. And that was the kind of philosophy I had, which is what led me to this consulting kind of business, right? Because what I saw in corporate was corporations were stymied in terms of innovation. Okay?
How so?
Because, like I said, it's paralysis by analysis.
Okay.
Lack of risk-taking. My whole thought process, even in the panel, was in a larger company, you're more interested in protecting your job.
Yes.
Okay. In a smaller company, I had very little chance of protecting my job.
Right.
Right. So what I started seeing was it was almost like drawing me to take the risk that I didn't have the risk appetite in a larger company. Right. So I took a risk. And some of the risks paid off and some don't, right? And that's part of what kind of leads you to your next entrepreneurial venture.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And as part of this whole process, what I have learned is, look, there are basic principles. There's incremental innovation. Okay. There's disruptive innovation. And then there's radical innovation where you're changing the category itself. Right. And one of the things that I can tell you is, think about milk today. I mean, it's a commodity, right? But there are so many varieties of milk that are coming up.
I didn't even know milk. Like my mom's deep into almond milk. I'm like, I don't even know how you can make almond milk out of almond.
But is it truly milk? That's the question.
And that's the question. But
right?
It looks like it. Coconut milk, yeah.
Yeah, so people call it milk, right? In fact, there is one new Silicon Valley company that's come up with fake milk.
And they labeled it as such?
That's right. It doesn't have all the calories of milk, but it is out there. And I don't forget the name, but it's a very interesting concept, right? Because what it does is it gives you all the nutrition without the
negative
aspects.
Sugars, I guess.
So think about Beyond Meat. Who would have thought that Beyond Meat,
The fake meat.
Yeah.
It's meat.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, at some point, though, okay, I get in our pursuit of health, shouldn't you just trust Mother Nature too, as it was intended and built? I mean, so sure, we're going to have some, sugar in fruits, but darn it, fruit's natural. It was there. It sustained our civilization for millions of years.
Yeah.
Why is it suddenly not edible?
So why do you think about natural and organic, right? So
right.
That's one of the ways to actually. So when I started this, I said, think about the ancient principles, bring those ancient principles to bear, and that helps you. So
I want to, and I just started drinking algae from a perspective of natural. So I'm all with you on that.
Gross.
Anyway, but I want to turn back to you made a really good statement about how corporations kind of are set up for, you don't want to innovate too much because you're going to fail, right? If you try to take too much risk, where as a startup, that's how you survive and thrive. So as you consult now, you've been on both sides, as you consult with these larger corporations, you talked about going and talking to the retail side, what can corporations do to eliminate that barrier? Because they're, like you said, they're setting people up where I'm safe. Don't rock the boat, because if I mess it up, I'm going to get fired. What can they do?
That is a great statement. Don't rock the boat, right?
Right.
But part of the philosophy here is to innovate, you have to take risk, okay? Risk means it impacts the P&L. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a P&L manager has a lot of difficulty when there's something impacting his P&L, right? Because he's judged a different way. So one of the things corporations can do is, and you're seeing this trend already, the innovation center is kept separate.
Separate, yep.
From the main organization, is given its own cost structure.
Yep.
Campbell's did it, Pepsi did it, a lot of these big corporations are now doing it. The trick is how to create that pipeline. So one of the things we do is, I talk to companies about ideation, right? So I take the whole idea is you ideate, you look for that new ideas to come out, right? You curate those ideas, okay? So from ideation, you go and take it and you curate those ideas. You then think about inception of the product. And then you think about, how do I accelerate this without the baggage around the P&L?
Right.
Okay? So it almost is like every innovation becomes a business plan. Every innovation, and it doesn't have to be a 30-page business plan, right?
Right.
It has to appeal to the audience. Find the niche, take a guerrilla marketing tactic, and go for it, right? And you when you're doing this quickly, right, you're basically taking, it's almost like a fail fast approach,
Right.
right?
Right.
Okay, otherwise you could be spending 3 years on the innovation and incurring a whole lot of costs if it doesn't work.
And how can they, like, I love how the integration works more, but I've noticed it. There's been some layoffs happening around even the Dallas Fort Worth area, and the innovation labs are what go first because it's harder to draw that ROI. So how can corporations think differently on this? Because if you're going to lose out, if you don't innovate yet. Like we were talking earlier, it's very numbers driven. It's very easy to look at numbers. Well, this isn't making a profit. Let it go. How can they rethink and relook at these innovation labs so it isn't the first thing to go when times get tough?
So think about what has happened in the CPG industry today, right? Kellogg's, cereal, dominant in the cereal category. They need to innovate around their category, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Pepsi and Coke, large companies, soft drinks. What's the problem? Sugar.
Right.
Right? Okay. So what do they try to do? Dr. Pepper, it acquired by. But part of the problem with all these kind of larger corporations is you have to think about the innovation lab as something that is almost a necessary evil.
Right.
Okay. This is the future. So when you think about the innovation lab as the future of your business, it is an investment that is needed to bring you the next stock market gain, right? That's why I love technology companies. And I also like what some of the companies like Tesla is doing,
Yeah.
They're trying some radical approaches, right? Today, when you look at the automobile industry, who would have thought, right? You could have a car that drives itself. The first time I sat in a BMW 750 and I pressed a button and it started driving itself on the highway, I was scared.
Yeah, no, it's hard to get used to.
I was at 75 miles an hour. The damn thing was driving itself, right? And I was like, what is going on? It's scary. But once you adapt to it on a long stretch of the highway, it was great.
Yeah.
Do you feel, and a couple things ran in my head when you were talking about that is, we are of a certain generation where we are used to are driving our own car, not self-driving cars, but your children, their children are much more inclined to accept that level of technology because we're heading towards that automation, if you will, right?
That's right.
I guess in a way, my question for you now is, as you're talking to these major corporations that are making the investments in these innovation spaces, whatever they want to call it, lab, hub, centers, whatever, branding, are they now finding harder talent pool because it takes a different brain to sit in that room to think about the future?
So talent is one of the key factors, right, for an innovation lab to succeed. You have to have people who think outside the box, who are not status quo, who are willing to go just that one extra mile. So, when I teach the class at SMU or some of the other universities, part of what I tell them is the key factor that drives this is forget what you know. Go in there and say, how can I make a change, right? And this old saying, don't worry, be happy, right? Whatever the results.
It's a result.
It's a result.
Right.
It's a result.
So, okay, I didn't mention this. So you are a professor. You speak at, or you teach at SMU. You have students. Yeah. Do you feel that the innovation centers are attracting more of a younger audience or younger employees versus tenured? Or are you seeing a good mix? Where are you seeing the most successful innovation centers, demographically speaking?
I think you need to have a mix.
Okay.
You need to have a mix. You need to have the people who are willing to take the risks. You need to have the voice of reason. You need to bring the experience together. And part of what I love doing is taking the strengths of the different people and knitting it. That is our job, right? As the head of innovation or the head of marketing or the head of strategy, right? Your job today is to really harness the power of the people around you to create a big difference. It's not just, hey, knock this person out because I don't get along with them. Their diversity is what makes it more unique for me to launch the product.
Are you seeing like students being more receptive at SMU?
I think so. Students everywhere. I mean, I think students are more receptive to the idea because they want to think about how to have a sexy career.
No, it's true.
It's true.
Yeah. And innovation is a sexy career. If you can actually have 2 to 3 innovations coming out of your shop, okay, that can be integrated. So you asked me, how does the company? So you're investing for the future.
Mm-hmm.
That investment is a minuscule amount of what you would spend on marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. Taking a Super Bowl ad versus spending it on the innovation center that can provide you with the flip that you need, right? That you can integrate a product or a brand into your portfolio.
Right. And I want to go back to what you said about the innovation labs and, kids are loving it.
So,
Adults.
But I know you said like ideally corporations should have both. They should have tenured and are you
not just
seeing
the corporations, I think the innovation labs.
innovation labs? Yeah. That's what I meant.
The best example I can give you. Sorry, I didn't.
No, go for it.
In the juice business, there were 2 young ladies who worked with me.
Yeah.
Wonderful ladies, right? And one of the things I learned from them was how they went and became entrepreneurs, how they created it, right? And bringing their background and mine was a pretty powerful little combination, right, for us, which actually, attracted some private equity groups to consider buying us.
Right. Do you find though that it's easier said than done? Do you find that like innovation labs, it's easy for them to find both, or do you see lopsided on one side, or is there something that's difficult for them to make
It's
those?
still a process. It's still a process. And it is going to take time because it's almost like think about it this way, it's like a cultural shift. I tell people it's a cultural shift of your mind and how you think when you're launching a new business, right? So it literally, I need to have a steady state. I need to bring in the entrepreneurial mindset. And then I need to kind of encourage both to work together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And that's easier said than done, for sure.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why the management skill of the acceleration process comes. So one of the things I see in the private equity and the venture capital world right now is we are encouraging entrepreneurs to come into these acceleration programs, right? And what that does is, as an entrepreneur, you don't have all the baggage.
Right.
Okay. For a large company, what that does is you can work with the accelerators to pick and choose eventful technology or eventful products or innovations that you can put back into your portfolio. And that is the benefit of creating these innovation labs and innovation centers. Europe is a lot further along than us.
How so?
Yeah, I was going to, and why?
Because they encourage that. Because they're constantly encouraging that. They're willing to take the risk. And if you look at new products that come out, it comes out first in Europe very often.
Interesting. And you'd think that'd be opposite because I know Europe has more regulations on the food that we should be eating than the U.S. does. So it's cool that they're
thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right? So the other thing to think about from a venture capital point of view or a private equity point of view is I'm hunting for the next holy grail, right?
Right.
Okay, so the next innovation that can launch a whole series of businesses.
Oh, so you're not saying just a business. You're talking about like you want a disruptor. You don't want a incremental.
Yeah, so incremental is fine, but if I can find something that disrupts the whole technology, right? That's phenomenal. So you've heard a lot of misuse of the word blockchain, right? Okay?
Yes.
But for heaven's sake, when we think about what it is literally knitting different blocks together, right? So it becomes very hard for a hacker to hack into those.
Right.
things, right? So you look at IoT today. Again, a lot of people talk about IoT,
Yeah.
right? But who would have thought 5 years ago that, hey, I could use my cell phone to control my whole life?
Right.
Right.
I don't carry anymore a computer when I travel. It's either my cell phone or my iPad,
Yeah.
and I can do a lot with it. So technology has changed, and we have. So when I talked about food, think about it this way, right? Today I can look at your genetics and I can tell you what types of food will work for you or not.
Yeah, don't depress me. I don't need it. I don't. I'm sad now. Conversation's over.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
There you go. But
So-
you see the opportunity?
The way you are describing it is something I just haven't really thought about. And again, my background in technology, all I think about is, from my perspective, I don't think about industry specific, how technology is leveraged and,
That's right.
and maximized. We just had another podcast where an individual is providing IoT services to the rural communities.
Yes.
And, after talking to him, it's just why your eyes are opened. You don't think about the farming or food, CPG leveraging technology as much. But if you think about it, it's all technology.
huge.
It's
Yeah.
all
It's
technology.
Yeah.
Growing patterns, for example. So when you think about 2030 or 2050, right, I'm looking at demographic shifts. So you asked me about trends, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I study is the shifts in people, in income, in various types of technological outputs that can then change the way we think about food. Teledocs, drone technology to go in and,
Yeah.
deliver products to remote areas. I mean, a few years ago, we didn't have that.
No.
Right.
No, not at all. And so,
Renewable energy, right?
yeah.
Okay, so that carbon emissions. I mean, and that's the beauty about what you asked me. How does it feel to get into this whole world of consulting
Yeah.
with private equity and venture capital, as well as large corporations? I'm finding it fascinating because I don't have the chains surrounding my thought
Right.
process,
Right.
and I don't have to worry about the political environment,
Yes.
right, to deliver my thoughts.
How freeing is that?
Yeah.
That you could simply speak your mind. Obviously, you want to be tactful, but
Sure.
delivering a very truthful assessment
That's
to an
right.
organization.
That's right. That's right. Because for us, look, as innovators, as people who are creative, you don't want the boundless enthusiasm we can bring to something to be curtailed all the time because it's not the right environment.
Right.
Right.
Okay. And that's why these innovation centers become so important. That's why I encourage students to come in and think about this from a different viewpoint, right? The best example I can give you is freeing to see what wireless and iPhone has done. Now we are coming up with 5G, right? 5G is a great technology, and I'm free flowing, so stop me anytime.
No.
But
Keep going.
5G is a fantastic technology, right? Because latency is, curtailed.
Right.
Right now, all of a sudden, think about how beneficial that is for medical
Applications, absolutely.
applications, financial applications.
I'm just thinking.
Instantaneous, right?
Exactly.
Okay, for content delivery, you guys were talking about, right?
Exactly.
So to me, that is what changes the perspective of how these innovations can come in and why you should take the risk.
So let me shift. I'm going to shift gears a little bit because your background is in marketing as well, and I've always been intrigued to ask this, especially because you are teaching next generation students at SMU in the age of social media. How has traditional marketing evolved from the past to today? What are you seeing, and what are you coaching the students on today?
Well, I'll tell you, not just SMU. When I go and do these speeches outside, right, and talk about how traditional marketing has changed, think about digital. I'll give you a prime example. In the old days, I would do custom market research. I would do segmentation after segmentation after segmentation.
Right.
With 3,000 people, let's say, right? Today, I can use social media and get to 400,000 people and do the same segmentation.
Wow. Okay.
That has changed. Today, I can have influencers, influence a brand. Okay. I have content-driven marketing where I'm telling a story. So that's what's changing. And that's part of what I love about what we're doing now is trying to change the way people go to market using digital assets.
Right.
Right. Using your web tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
And using traditional and non-traditional media.
And what do you mean by traditional and non-traditional media?
Think about your old television, print ads, and all that. Right?
Okay.
You still have to have a mix, but I don't need to have the mix so much.
That's heavily skewed towards or make that $5 million investment for a Super Bowl ad. I can now distribute maybe differently.
Right. That's right.
You know, so let me ask you this, because I have a love-hate relationship with social media influencers. There's no denying the impact it has had on the world of marketing. Do you feel corporations are leveraging these influencers enough?
I don't know whether they're influencing enough as much as they're influencing, using them in the correct way.
Okay, help me understand that then.
Because you have to have a product that has some substance for an influencer to influence. Otherwise, that product will die.
Okay.
Right? I don't care how good the influencer is, the product will die.
Okay.
If the product attributes are not there.
Okay.
Right? So one of the things that you can do with the influencers are give them the right tools to influence, right? They have followers. The followers will follow them, right? You can see this today in the marketing of movies, how radically it has changed.
Oh, yes. Having the actors have their own, Ryan Reynolds is
right.
like the best spokesperson
That's
for, and he's become much more than just Ryan Reynolds, the actor.
That's right. So there's a lot of opportunity to take influences and use them in the right way to promote certain messages, thought processes, and products. So when we talk about innovation, I don't say innovation is just a product or a new idea, right?
Okay.
Innovation is a way of being.
Okay.
Right? And that changes how you leverage the process. Innovative process could be a new innovative way to do business.
Exactly.
Right? Using technology to leverage how and when. A great example is the Apple Watch, where you can actually now look at your EKG. Right?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Phenomenal idea. Why? Because blood pressure. Why not have a blood pressure monitor on
right there?
Right there. Right? So because people who need it, it's a great tool.
It is. It is. I have a personal opinion on this, and I think every single podcast I have to say, because it's my dig, my background in security is, what are you going to do with my data? With my EKG, is my insurance rates going to go up because suddenly you realize I don't have the healthiest lifestyle, or that convenience to know I'm okay. There's good and bad. There's pros and cons, right?
Privacy issues are always going to be there, right? Because the more data you share, the less secure it is, and a bad actor can get hold of it.
Or how do they compile all that data and read it, etc.
Correct.
Do you think America as a culture, and I've read an article about this a while back, because we have such a concern about our own personal data and our information, that as a society, we are going to become less innovative. We are going to our culture is going to hold us back. Whereas other countries like China, for example, are going to innovate and surpass the United States because they have a different mindset, which is much more of a community-oriented thing. Do you agree, disagree, or what do you think you see?
I think we as Americans have an opportunity to innovate, right?
Okay, right.
Okay, and we should take the opportunity to innovate because we're the greatest power on earth, okay,
right.
For heaven's sake, right? But my philosophy has been corporations need to encourage people to do that. Instructors need to encourage students to do that. And everybody needs to the government needs to encourage innovation, right? And that's the benefit of China. in China, the government places a big emphasis. So I saw somewhere, I think on the news the other day, where China is taking over the US in terms of 5G applications.
Oh, how so? Like,
they're investing a lot more.
all more?
Yes. Yes. So to me, that's a tremendous, again, a lost opportunity for the US.
Exactly.
Right. But do we have the opportunity? I mean, are we the first one to send out something to space? Probably we are, right? I mean, so we are harnessing the power. I think the best thing I can say is the encouragement has to come from the top and around you.
I'm trying to get myself in trouble. I'm like, I get what you're saying from the top, but I fear, in a way, I think the United States has a distrust of our own government. So when we're encouraged to look at certain things, I feel at times, is it corporations that are really going to ultimately be the pull, for us?
I think our whole society is built on entrepreneurship. And I think entrepreneurs are the pull. More so than the corporation, right? And that is why we have this whole idea of innovation centers.
Right.
Right.
And getting that mix between the two.
Correct. So as we, as a society, start thinking about where we can do some good, how can we do some good, right? Okay. You can use innovative tools to do good.
Right. Absolutely.
And part of what I always tell people is stop thinking about the money, right? It's not the money that makes the innovation. It is the innovation that drives a certain need state that will ultimately make you the money.
Right. No, and I think that's an interesting point. I was talking about Amazon the other day about how shocking is it that they started out as a book distributor, basically, right? Online, and they were able to tap and leverage the market. They understood and read that there was a need to expand it beyond simply book delivery or et cetera, right? And because of, by virtue of their own growth in business, they needed stronger data centers, bigger data centers. And then they, through use of, understanding the whole cloud, the concept of cloud, now they have AWS as another augmentation of their business. That absolutely fascinates me. And I think entrepreneurs, need to understand that your initial product that you put together might have a disruptive impact on your industry, that you become much bigger than what you originally were.
Exactly.
And I think at times people, I think entrepreneurs are very broad-sided and short-sighted at the exact same time. Are you seeing venture capitalists and equity firms, like do you see that they are short-sighted at times as well?
Of course we are, because we're always looking for the next
quick buck too,
and the return on investment. But there are people who are taking on a very different approach, right? I'll tell you, like there are foundations from, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right?
Yeah.
For example, they're doing a lot of things about clean water, things with renewable energy, big infrastructure projects that a normal entrepreneur cannot do, right?
Yeah.
But they're backing some of that. And so part of what you're finding is there are pockets of VCs and pockets of private equity groups that are looking to make a radical change. And you, as an entrepreneur's job, is to unearth them. And that's what kind of I, as Empower Ventures and the team, that's what we do. We look at different ventures and we say, how can we scale them? Does this make sense? Is it innovative enough? And can we scale it without the whole baggage of a large company?
That's awesome. I with what you are describing is a need. I think corporations do need that communication and path, because it's not simple. It's not easy for an entrepreneur or startup to talk to a major corporation.
That's right.
There's that bridge, and oftentimes it's like the VCs who are incubating and they're growing these businesses and they're taking them to the next stage for the potential of collaboration, acquisition, partnership, etc.
Because it's an exit strategy, and that's what, as a venture builder, we do is we look at a venture and say, can we take this venture from X to Y, right? And at Y, do we exit it out into a larger company, or do we exit it out somewhere else?
So you use the word venture builder.
Yes.
Define that for me, please.
So difference between a venture builder and a venture capitalist is a venture builder takes a venture and says, can I take this and put it on a strategic growth pathway? Okay. And help them grow along the way. So you bring in the skills that a corporation or an entrepreneur needs to succeed.
Oh.
So think about your company today, right? You're a startup. You're doing podcasts. You're doing content. There are so many aspects of your business that you could use some help with.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you come, there are guys like us who have been there. We have worked in multiple industries. We have seen it, right?
Right.
And that is why this mix is so important of the young and the experienced coming together to drive forward, right? So when I talk about strategic growth perspectives, somebody said to me, how do I take my product and go to this distributor? Which distributor do I go to? How do I get it online into Amazon? Some of that we have already done.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that is why you see shows like Shark Tank, right? The benefit is not the money that you put into these organizations. It is that experience that Mark Cuban brings in.
Yeah, that's true.
It is the experience that somebody else. A great example I can give you is, Sir Richard Branson, right?
Yeah.
Okay. He says, do what makes you uncomfortable because you learn from it.
It's very true. I've learned that several times.
That's me doing laundry on expensive clothing. Let me tell you, you learn very quickly not to do that.
Yes. and he's such a humble person.
Yeah, he is.
He's such a humble person. I had the pleasure of meeting him in Dallas. We took a photograph together and we toasted.
Oh, nice.
Okay. And it was just amazing for me to see that you learn from people like that. And that is what, as an entrepreneur, to encourage an entrepreneurial culture, that's what you need to do. Don't stifle that enthusiasm.
Right. And I think sometimes, just by virtue of human beings, we do it sometimes not knowingly that we're actually discouraging people to do things. I think it's just human nature, unfortunately.
Right. See, and as a venture builder, our job is to look for pathways, not to say no. It is, the most difficult challenge, I say, okay, let me find a way out of this.
Exactly.
Right? And that is what you can do as a venture builder for a lot of the entrepreneur companies. Not saying that many of them will succeed also, because, the statistics are like out of the 150, maybe 4 or 5 succeed, right?
Right.
But if you can help those 4 to 5 succeed and get scale, it's a tremendous opportunity. And so you have to do what you're passionate about. That's why, I'm so passionate about food for health.
Right.
Right? Because, I have people in our family who have gone through things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was by changing their diet that we got rid of medicine completely.
Yeah.
Okay? To me, that was like a phenomenal eye-opener, like when I saw that. Right? Now, I grew up here, allopathic medicine, right? I never knew what Ayurvedic medicine was till I actually started seeing it.
Right.
It makes a difference, right?
I think there's we're talking about culture as well. It's shifting, etc. I think this next generation, the Gen Z, whatever you want to call it, after the millennials, are so much more healthier. The millennials, for sure, are much more inclined to eat more holistically, healthier. I'm really intrigued to see how the pharmaceutical industry is going to adapt for that, because Gen X and older seem to be pill addicted, whereas the next gen seem to be more of the, we see her on 20 pills at the age of 40. I don't think I want that life for me.
See, and I look at pill addiction versus health kind of too. I see like people eating better, but they still want their pills.
Yeah.
But there is more openness to, okay, if I eat better, I could heal this. I still see people okay with pill popping for some things.
Do you?
Yeah, I want the pharmaceutical. I'm going to get off the soapbox now.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have a supplement industry.
Right.
So you think about it. To get your whole vitamins, I could take a juice bottle and get it.
Right.
I could take a veggie bottle and get it.
Right.
Or I could take a pill.
Yeah.
What's easier?
Exactly.
Right? So there's an old friend of mine from the NPD group. I think there's a research company. He talks about, people talk about healthy, but the biggest seller today, even today, is a sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the burger, right?
It's convenient and it's
I
Yeah,
can't.
in and out.
Yeah.
It's in, out, and it's easier. So yes, there is that shift in mindset towards a healthier lifestyle. That's why you're seeing aging baby boomers. We are all getting to that point where we are looking for healthier alternatives, right? Today, one of the things I talked to you about is innovation when we look at trends 2030, 2050,
Yeah.
right? Geriatric population. Huge geriatric population, right? So what's going to happen? You have to create products and services to support them.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how you think about innovation, this whole idea of artificial intelligence. You talked about big data. One of the programs I'm part of is to look at how we can take big data and start solving mathematical equations in a much faster rate to start looking and predicting certain things in the market, right? Because you can do that by having your past data come in, but the computing power has changed now.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so I don't have to sit and analyze large number of data points, right? The computer does that for me. And that tells me what the pattern looks like.
Yeah.
No, you just hashtagged a bunch of words for us there. Thank you so much,
Thank
Nick.
you.
Got the
That's some
AI,
buzzwords.
blockchain. Yeah.
Yeah.
We make fun of those. Sometimes, yes, it has meaning, but we overuse it so much that it
In the
diminishes.
right context.
In the right
In
context.
And the right use.
Yes.
Yeah.
AI in the right use, right?
Right.
So, like when you think about AI today, planes crashing, so on and so forth, right? You start looking at that, right? What are the reasons for that happening? Couldn't we predict terrorist activity because you can already look at AI and you can see pockets, right? So there should be a way you should be able to do that. And that's kind of the thought process that drives innovative thinking,
Right.
right? I saw something in the news the other day where 200 people were killed in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
3 now, I think.
300, right? So it just bothers you, right?
Yeah.
When you look at that, and can it be prevented? That is the question.
Right.
Now, don't know, but in time, I think the computing power should be able to tell us where are these pockets, who are they, what do they do, how are they getting,
It's very born identity-ish, but if it's applied for good,
That's right.
then obviously
That's
it'd be
my
better
point.
for everyone. But yes,
That's my point.
but yeah. So Nick, so if I can summarize, as we had a great conversation so far, but long story short, corporations, they need to, if they want to be relevant in the future, they need to develop some kind of innovation center of whatever we want to brand it, call it, whatever. And it doesn't matter what industry they're in.
That's right.
Obviously, your background has been in CPG, so obviously you've got that background. But
CPG technology, it doesn't matter what industry they're in.
I mean, even retail, as you
Correct,
mentioned,
even
yeah.
retail. They need to have the ability to go and ping and say, look, I have got this radical idea. Throw it over the fence here, right? Let them develop it. Let them come back to you with a solution. Give them the time to come back to you with a solution, right? And the solution, for the corporation, what the benefit is, it doesn't take, if I was running a brand, it doesn't take me away from my day-to-day job to think about that. Somebody else is doing it, bringing it to me, and it's already market tested, right? So I'm literally using that as my Y Combinator.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep.
Okay. So that's one way. So that's a good way for companies to start using innovation labs.
And then I think the second step too is just because you have a lab and great ideas, if you do not know how to execute it, if you do not know how to bring the teams together for collaboration
That's right.
and true and great solid communication, from ideation to actual implementation and execution, that's where I think other areas where corporations could really look at the entrepreneurial spirit
It's
to
a culture.
execute.
Encourage the culture, encourage the people, get the right talent in, right?
Right.
And manage the talent to actually create the outputs you need.
Right.
Right.
And that's the second thing, I think, And the third thing is encourage that whole idea of risk-taking.
Risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
You fail in life, you learn from it, you move on.
Yeah. And I think we're so reticent to fail. I think as a culture is we don't want to look like idiots, right?
But I look at Aaron, serial entrepreneur,
I know.
okay?
And I failed a lot. I could tell you many, many, many failure stories.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, from my perspective, I've seen nothing but success from her. So, but she's made some missteps and, but learned. And I think that's a critical piece, regardless if you're a corporation or an entrepreneur or whatever mid-tier established startup.
Yeah.
You got to learn from your mistakes. If you do not, it's okay to fall on your face, but if you can't get yourself back up again and learn from your mistake and make the same mistakes over and over again, which I think corporations do, I don't think they learn from their past mistakes at times, and the definition of insanity maybe they fire that particular individual, bring another person in who has the same idea to execute,
Right.
and they're doing the exact same thing.
And there are some corporations that are more innovative. Like look at Google.
Right.
It's very innovative, right? I mean, there's a prediction I have that they will be in the education business pretty soon, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much content that they have, right? So you look at what Apple did under Steve Jobs, right? I mean, revolutionized the cell phone, right? So there are companies that are very innovative, and I think part of the shift in thinking is they are willing to take that risk, right? When guys like me have an opportunity to go and talk to these companies, right? We see how tremendous the opportunity space is for them to impact. Right?
Yeah.
And impact for the good, right? It's not just about making money.
Right.
Well, I'd like to think the next generation businesses will have some level of overarching mission outside of just making money. But that's me being altruistic, I think, at times. But I do think there's a cultural shift. I do think the millennials are kind of really pushing it much more forward than the Gen X's ever did. I mean, and I hope, I'm crossing fingers, that the Gen Zs, or whatever they're called, is going to be much more in line for various reasons, right?
Yeah.
You can have amazing technology, but if you're going to kill the earth in the process, we have nowhere to go.
Right.
And that's exactly right. So that's why, when we were talking about renewable energy, why I'm so passionate about it, right? Because you need to reduce the carbon emissions, right? You need to reduce smog.
Yes.
And today, are you telling me that we cannot create a battery that has, say, 300 miles capability? I'm pretty sure there is something out there, right?
Right.
Okay, so the question then becomes, why are we so dependent on oil,
Exactly. Wow.
right?
Wow. That's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
Yeah, outside the scope of this podcast, sir.
But just think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole innovative way of actually creating no carbon emission,
Right.
right? So all of a sudden, what have you done? You've changed the way people go to market.
Yeah.
My thinking, hey, I just plug it in, and I'm going in my car. And the car drives by itself and prevents an accident. Can it be done? Of course it can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nick, I knew I'd have a great conversation with you. Like I said, panelists, some of them are amazing, and others you're like, oh my God, why are you there? But you were not that person, and that's why we asked you to join us. So Nick Mysore with Empower Ventures, thank you so much for joining us. Is there any last thing that you'd like to talk about that we haven't mentioned on behalf of business or prediction?
Where people can find you too.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
two-part question there.
Yeah, sorry. Woo.
Go ahead.
Any last thoughts? And then how can we find you?
They can look me up. They can send me an email saying nickm@empowerventures.com
Okay.
and call me.
And from let's just joke around here for the next 10 years. What's your prediction, and where do you envision the next big thing?
Oh, that's a loaded question and a very hard one.
I know at the last second here.
Here's
too.
what I'll tell you. I see myself as a change agent. I love making change, whether it's this tiny or this large, right? And the more I can impact, this is one of the reasons I stepped out and I said, when I ran into these young ladies, right, it really changed my life because I saw how entrepreneurs struggle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, how can I bring this thought process, this leadership, this completely radical way of accelerating the process so that these entrepreneurs can succeed and the venture capitalist can get his money back.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Okay, so it's a win-win for the VCs and the entrepreneur, and it's a win-win for the corporations because I'm bringing them radical new ideas.
Right.
Okay. So how is the future going to change? Who knows? I mean, I wish we could predict it, but I can tell you, if we can do things that can save our planet, save the way our next generation is looking at their health, right? So look at my themes. My themes are pretty consistent. I'm looking at health for the future. I'm looking at the environment for the future, right? And I'm looking at deploying technology for the common good as opposed to the misuse.
I like it.
I love that.
All things I love too.
Yeah.
Well, on that thought then, Nick, again, thank you so much for joining us at Innovation Calling. And Aaron, any last thoughts?
No, I think
that's a wrap, everyone. Thank you so much.
Great.